Hello, welcome to Connecting Customer Value with Strategic Vision. My name is Martha Ferez, and I am the Head of Change for Non-Financial Risk at Deutsche Bank, where I also perform as an Agile trainer and coach. My professional background includes consulting and risk. Additionally, I have a degree in Industrial and Systems Engineering from Mexico, where I'm from. Today, I would like to share with you some top tips from my job, which includes how can we deliver the company's vision by breaking it down to little chunks of value that would eventually stack up to the vision, allowing us to pivot in changing work environments. So let's get on to it. This is a vast topic, so I will do my best to cover key themes within this presentation, but we could spend hours just discussing this, so feel free to get in touch with me if you have further questions. But today, what you will learn include gaining an understanding of the complexities of defining customer value. You will then learn how to apply an agile mindset to prioritize true customer value across the organizational structure. And finally, we will learn about the tool to monitor continuous value delivery whilst connecting it to the strategic vision. So we have 4 points to cover in today's agenda. First off, identifying our customer. 2, defining customer value. 3, prioritizing and monitoring value. And 4, the key takeaways for you to remember. So let's start with identifying our customer. You may wonder, why is this even important? Well, you might have heard about customer centricity being a key factor in helping companies turn a profit and keep their employees engaged. That implies ensuring that our product or our service implies a value proposition that will include a positive environment and experience from end to end for our customer, which will increase their loyalty. So that's why it's important to understand who our customer is, so we can understand what do they value and what do they need. You might wonder, well, that's easy, right? So the client, that's simple. But if you work in a complex organization, I don't know if you're familiar with the 3 lines of defense. Only the first line of defense actually is in touch with what we deem as the client. However, within the larger organization, if you're part of the second or third line of defense, you'll notice that sometimes your customer would be another team or another department. Additionally, we should also consider that the stakeholders running the enterprise could also be our customer. And the final element within this system would be the society. So this is complex because while you could have a key customer, there are connections with the other types because it's all interrelated. So it would be counterproducing if we think that we're delivering value for the client. So for instance, if we're creating a new petrol that would make their car go faster, but that is having an environmental impact to the society because it's polluting it. Or at the same time within the team, if we think that we have a great idea to create a new technical platform, and then we find out that the other platform that we decommissioned was used by another team, and therefore we cannot bring together the value that the enterprise required. So we must bear that in mind as we step into the next agenda item for this training, which is defining customer value. So I don't know if you ever thought about this. Value actually comes in many forms, or I call them value types. And it is dependent on context, and its definition changes throughout time, which again gives you an idea of how complex it is because things are evolving. So on the screen, you'll see 2 types of value that are financial. The first one is financial return, or other people might know it by return of investment. So what would I get tomorrow or in the future from an investment that I have done today? The next one is cost saving, which is how less money will I spend based on an investment that I did today. So this is easy to understand because it's qualitative, so it's objective. However, there's other types of value that could be deemed as more qualitative that are definitely worth considering. For instance, risk mitigation. There is value in making sure that our process is safer, because that means that the odds of a risk realizing and materializing into an issue are lower. So there's value in that. We also have knowledge, which many people forget about because it's quite abstract. But if you think about it, one can get knowledge or lessons learned from successes, but also failures. And it is within our nature as humans to want to hide our failures. But if we have an agile mindset and we value knowledge, if there's a lesson learned that others could benefit from our failure, that is valuable. So that's why we have proofs of concepts and pilots that even if they fail, they make us realize that that path was not the appropriate one. And with that learning, we can move on and try a different one with the lessons learned. And the last one that I would like to share with you is user experience. So this doesn't have to relate to money or making the process safer. It just regards the experience of engaging with our product or service being more enjoyable. This could make it easier, simple, more streamlined, less convoluted. So there is value in that. The last thing I want to flag within this slide is that all these value types are actually interrelated, and they could create a virtuous cycle. So for instance, if we decide to improve the user experience, we're actually making an investment into simplifying convoluted processes. And that would free up time from the departments that are supporting that process, and therefore they can focus on more complex activities, and therefore it's a cost saving for that specific process. And if the experience is simpler, it also means that the process might be less convoluted, and we could add controls to make it flow more easily, which would enhance risk mitigation. And we would have the knowledge of what actually worked to make this better, and we could share that with other teams. So as you can see, this slide is about understanding the different types of value, but also how they're connected, so we can focus at the most important one at a given point in time. Right, so now I have covered that there's a few customers that we should consider and a few value types to consider. So you might be wondering, okay, this is getting really complex, because if I have all those customers and each of them might prioritize a different value type at a different point in time, depending on where we within the life cycle of our product or service, how could I possibly manage that holistically? Because if we're a large organization with many departments and with many employees, how could I make sure that everyone is focusing on the most important thing at a given time? So that is where the strategic layer comes in. So I want to walk you through the connection between mandate, strategy, and vision. So first off, vision is where are we going? It's why are we doing something? Why do we go to work? What are we trying to build? Who would we like to be in the future? So mandate is what are we authorized to do today? So what is within my job description to do today that would take a step in the right direction to deliver that vision? And then the strategy is how we get there. There are many different paths that could be followed. So that is how we define what is the best approach to deliver that vision. And any of these strategic items could be adapted at a given time. But usually a vision is set for the future, at least 5 years in the future, and it should remain steady. However, if the conditions change, we might choose to change our destination, and we would have to align our mandate and our strategy. So again, thinking of how complex organizations could be today, you might say, okay, so for my team, I have now defined a mandate, a strategy, and a vision. But again, it's important to make sure that everything is aligned within the organization. Other way, we end up working in silos. So our vision should contribute towards the department's vision, and the department's vision should contribute to the enterprise's vision. And we should monitor this, because if at any point in time something changes, we need to realign. Because the idea of an enterprise is that everyone is pushing in the same direction to deliver one vision, and everyone has something to contribute towards that. So on a day-to-day, we would have to consider how to monitor this customer value. How could we track the delivery and the steps that we're taking towards one common vision? So the tool I would like to share with you today is inspired on the strategy canvas. We have made some tweaks within the change team that I work with in order to make it suitable to monitor that customer value delivery. So let me walk you through it. So it's a canvas. So we have a blank piece of paper, and on the x-axis, something that we have changed is that instead of it tracking the different attributes of the vision, it tracks time, because we want to see how are we performing on the delivery of that value year on year. And then, unlike the original strategy canvas, you will see that the trends don't connect what different competitors are doing, but instead they show the trajectory of the small chunks of value that then comprise the vision. I'll get into that in a second. Finally, on the y-axis, we have a maturity level. The original strategy canvas just measures low or high, but here we thought it would be more useful to have maturity levels on those capabilities that will then conform the vision. So we have discovery when we don't know what we're exactly doing. We're figuring it out. We're doing research. Then we have developing when we know what we're doing and we're starting to build that capability. Established when we have arrived at our destination. We know that that is the level of maturity that we needed. And then maybe not applicable to all of them, but if that target state is industry leading, that's the next level. So we're showing the market how things should be done. So let me give you an example. First, let's set the target state. This is how this works. So say a company, let's use something that regards coffee, because I like coffee. So imagine a coffee house. They have a vision that states that they will provide delicious coffee with an environmentally friendly approach in a comforting setting. And the way that they chose to break down that vision into the vision pillars would be, let's call pillar number 1, the quality of the coffee beans. Pillar number 2, being environmentally friendly. And pillar number 3, the coffee lounge. So that is the setting. And they know that in 5 years' time, they would like to be industry leading for pillar number 3. And they would like to be established for the other vision pillars. The next thing to do is to state the current status. So then they will analyze that at the moment, actually, they already think that they're leading the industry with pillar number 3. We said that that was the one that regarded the coffee lounge, it feeling comfortable, a place where people would like to be. Then they assess that pillar number 2, the one regarding having an environmentally friendly approach, is actually established. They're quite happy with what they have done, and they only need to work on sustaining it. And they actually realize that they're just in discovery. They haven't actually found a place that has the coffee beans to the level of quality and price, them being organic and healthy for their customers. So they're still in discovery. So that is the longest journey. So if you use this tool, you would be able to track that journey. You know where you're going and you know where you're at. So let's start with pillar number 1, the one that regards the coffee beans. So for the first year, they did a lot of research. They reached out to local producers, they engaged in fair trade, they tried the different coffee beans, they tried different blends, and they're actually happy what they have found, and they start building. So during the second and third year, they keep developing and building the connections, working on their supply chain. And by the fourth year, they think that they're established. They're quite happy. And the final year, they push to remain established and sustain everything that they have worked for. Now let's look at vision pillar number 2. That regards being environmentally friendly. So they already felt that they were established. Maybe they invested in having recyclable cups for takeaway, including loyalty schemes for people to bring their own mug. And maybe they have solar panels in order to give the right light and the right music for their lounge. So the only thing that they need to do is to sustain it. Work, of course, goes into it because they have to adapt to any new technology. Maybe the industry has new things to offer, so they stay on top of it, but they sustain that level of established. And then maybe let's go for a more dramatic example where things don't go as planned. So value pillar number 3 regarded the coffee lounge. So they thought that they were leading. They thought that they had like really nice decorations, the right space for people to come in, enjoy their coffee, have a good conversation. So they were sustaining that. But then something happens in year number 2. Let's imagine that was something outside of their control, which happens in complex environments. Let's call that COVID. So COVID strikes and they have to close their lounges, and there's no longer that attribute to their value proposition. So if they were famous for being environmentally friendly and the great flavor of their coffee and their lounges, the lounge vision pillar disappears. So they're back to square 1 or 0 because they no longer know how to provide that attribute as a part of their value proposition. But let's be positive. Let's imagine that they were innovative and they started exploring how they could again provide a nice place for people to enjoy the coffee whilst remaining COVID safe. So they did some research, they established some controls in place, they added panels, they invested in an app that is contact-free, and the coffee gets delivered to your table without touching anything. And the waiters, if any, were masks. So then again, they became industry leading because they can provide a safe environment for people to enjoy their coffee. So this was just an imaginary example to bring to life how this tool could be valuable for you. You can use that for anything, depending on what's the vision of your company. So you could choose for the vision pillars to be anything. It could be automation if you're choosing to have a technology-driven company. You could think about investing in artificial intelligence and measuring that as a value pillar. If you would like your processes to be seamless, you could make one of those pillars about simplicity or efficiency. If your company is about providing useful information and data, you could have a pillar that regards providing insightful analytics. And if you feel that your company is at risk Maybe you would like to include a pillar that makes it safer, so something around improved controls. So it depends what your company does, what is their value proposition, and where do they want to take it in 5 years' time. Of course, it's always an option to pivot. So back to the example of a coffee house, they could have chosen to remove that from their value proposition and shift to delivering really good coffee at decent prices for their people while still being environmentally friendly. So reasons why you should use this tool include it's simple, it's visual, it's easy to communicate, and your team would really appreciate knowing where they're going, what are they contributing towards, and that would give them a sense of purpose. Additionally, you can see holistically your value proposition, the one that you intended and the one that you actually delivered every year at a time. So for instance, on year 0, you'll see that the vision pillars were quite spread out. So you had something on discovery, something established, and something that was industry leading. And in 5 years' time, you'll see that most of the attributes within your value proposition are either industry leading or established. And it also helps you think that you don't need to be industry leading on everything. Sometimes it's okay to be just good enough if that's your vision. So now the takeaways. I would like you to walk out of this talk remembering that customer value should be assessed holistically. As I explained on the first slide, there are many different customers, and it's very easy to simplify things and only having a tunnel view and focusing in silos on what your customer needs. But for the system to work, because everything is connected, we must keep an eye on what the rest of the organization needs. So remember that, because they will come around. Maybe it won't be important that year, but today or tomorrow, it will be important. Next takeaway is using that vision as a guiding star when things get complicated. If your organizational structure is huge, that's the best way of making sure that everyone is aligned. They must know what are they gearing towards, and they can deliver customer value. That is key. Again, there's many value types, but the important thing is to focus on the type of value that is most important. So if you're a startup, maybe at the beginning, we should focus on knowledge so we know what works. If you're a well-established organization, maybe your focus is on profit. And if you're even more established, maybe you should go back and focus on knowledge because you might require some innovation. So always keep that in mind. Use the vision as your guiding star when things get complicated. And because that vision will probably be huge, remember to break it down into pillars to facilitate the prioritization. So if the vision is too big to deliver at once, it would be easier if you have small chunks of value that you're monitoring and that you're communicating so everyone is on the same page, and therefore you can track the delivery of value, how it's progressing continuously. And the aim would be for those small chunks of value to stack up year on year, and at the end you can deliver your vision. So thank you so much for your time. I wish you the very best in this journey to deliver value whilst aligning to your strategic vision, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you.